You play like you practice. If you are going out in a game and trying to do all these crazy whiz-bang things that you've never done or tried before in practice, get out. You're going to get pulled from the game and set on the bench, and you're probably not going to get back in. Hey, it's Rob back here with you for Chapter 9 of Heads Up Baseball, and we are using Heads Up Baseball, a book written for baseball players, to enhance our lives, okay? We're using it as a personal growth tool and as a self-development book, and it's phenomenal in that way. And so if you don't have the book, I encourage you to get it. I've got the link down in the description where you can go get the book off Amazon. I don't think it's available on Audible, but you can get the physical book. They do still exist. And you can, or maybe you can get it on Kindle, I don't know. But you can read it and read along with us here in the videos. And that's a pretty big deal because in the videos here, I have about 15-20 minutes to talk to you and try to make it commute friendly. But I don't use any visual aids. I don't show graphics of charts that are in the book or anything like that. You got to have the book, okay? Some of those charts I do reproduce for my notes. So if you want my notes to the book, then head over to the website. It's www.yoursoulsource.com/resources. You can get signed up there for the email newsletter, and then you will also receive the notes for this book. Okay, that's like a kind of a sign-up bonus, I guess. I don't know what you call it. It's free. I say sign up. I mean, you just give me your email address and I send you emails. And I don't spam you or anything. I just, it's interesting and important, relevant material to success and achievement, and because that's what this is all about, right? You're a person who chases success and who thrives on achieving and reaching your goals, and so am I. And this community that I brought together over at the website, that's what we're all about, right? So that's what I want to encourage you to be a part of. And again, it's free. You just head on over there to the website and do that. If you like this video, or if you're getting any use out of this series, hit the like button on this video here, subscribe so you don't miss anything. You can comment, please comment down below and let me know how you are getting on with this stuff, how you are using this stuff in your daily life, if you have adopted anything from the material I'm presenting here, which again is material from the book Heads Up Baseball. And today we're going to talk about, in Chapter 9, working on the mental game in practice, okay? Now, working on the mental game in practice, again, very specific to baseball, right? Because baseball players practice daily. Well, it depends on what level you're at, okay? But, if we're talking about pro ball players, major league ball players, they practice every day, right? They play games every day, too, just about. I think they play 162 games in 180 days these days, something like that. So not a lot of days off during the season. But they practice every day too. And so how do you stay sharp in practice? How do you work on your mental game in practice? So this presents the challenge, since we're extrapolating these ideas to real life. What is the equivalent in life of practice, right? Like baseball practice, it's pretty clear you are practicing fundamentals and techniques and mechanics and things like that you're going to use in the game, right? Sometimes you're practicing strategies and things like that you're going to use in the game. There's not really a practice mode for life. You go into life and it's life. There's no practice. Right? So you need to kind of figure out a way that you can tweak this stuff and work on this stuff in your mental game, when the stakes aren't so high. And that's really the idea, okay? In practice, the stakes aren't high because it's you and your teammates and your coaches and you're working on stuff, and the point is to get better, right? So that in the game, when it is something that counts, right? When it is an important thing, then you are prepared. That's the whole point of practice, right? Is to get better so that when the rubber meets the road, when the chips are down, when the game's on the line, you can perform, right? And so that's kind of what we need to do here is figure out, all right, in my downtime, right, what can I do to prepare so that when the stakes are highest, I know that I am capable of performing at a high level, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, if you are in sales, if you are in any kind of performance-based job, this is a very important thing to be able to do, is to control your mental state and to be able to fine-tune it and work on it when you're away from the office or you're away from the job, whatever it may be, right? Because when you're there is when you need it. That's when you need it to work right. So you got to work on it outside of that. Okay, so this is one of those ways that we do that. We reading personal growth and self-development types of books, going to seminars and taking courses and things like that. Okay, so that's all knowledge that you can bring in, right? But now you need to apply that knowledge. And so that's really what I want to talk about here, is applying knowledge, right? Applying our knowledge to real life, because that's kind of the biggest corollary that I can make, or the best analogy that I can make with practice for a baseball team, right? They're working on things now when the stakes are low, so that when the stakes are high, they have the gear to be able to go to, and they know that they can perform that way. So same thing. When the stakes are low, meaning you are at home or you are doing whatever you're doing with your family or whatnot, that is the time that you need to spend working on this mental stuff, right? Working on your own mental game. And so, one of the things that is really important to do is that you must always be in that competitive mindset. You must always be treating practice like a game, okay? Treat your downtime when you are learning these mental skills, right? In order to apply them, in order to apply things that you learn in your life to real life and use the stuff, you want to create an environment where you are kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, simulating the real environment you're going to be in, so that you can be prepared. That's the whole point. Again, practice, the point of practice is to prepare. So we're talking about preparation here, right? So preparing comes down to making sure that you are at least somewhere near that intensity level that you'll need to be at when it's time to perform. Okay? And you can do that in a variety of ways. One of the ways that I do personally is role play. And I've had jobs in the hospitality and in restaurants. I spent a lot of years in restaurants. I was a chess coach for many years. I've been a coach in sports before. There are other things that I've done as a business owner now. There's different skill sets, right, and different things that apply to each one of those. Sales jobs as well that I've had. But the one thing that you can do, no matter what it is that you're involved in, is you can role play, right? Role play was always a big thing in all of these industries. And so what we would do when we were training someone, for instance, at the restaurant, is we would role play. A manager, that was me a lot of times, the manager would sit down and the new waiter or waitress would come over and, we'd practice, right? And then critique and give feedback, okay? So role playing, that's one that you can use, right? And sales, obviously, role play is a huge thing in sales. I'll never forget, I had a sales job one time where they didn't do any of that. And I didn't think so much about it until I moved on from that job, took another sales job. And at that sales job there, every single day we did something called matchups. And so the senior salespeople would line up on one side, and the newer salespeople would line up on the other side, and the newer salespeople would pitch the senior salespeople, and the senior salespeople would give them feedback and critique them. We did that every day. And guess what? Those salespeople grew themselves into finely tuned machines, sales machines, right? That sales force was miles ahead of the sales force from the other company, because that company, we never did any of that at any point. There was a little bit of training, And there wasn't even a whole lot of training on like what to say and how to overcome objections and things like that, which is mind-boggling to me. But how do you expect your people to perform if you're not giving them what it is that they need in order to perform? To go back to the baseball analogy, it would be like if the coaches and the manager, they didn't instruct the players at all, and they didn't help them at all, and they just kind of let them do their own thing out there, and then the coaches are all hanging out in the dugout having beers. Like, that's not how you're going to win very many games, right? You're not going to have a great team that way. And so I could not figure out why this one company, they did not train at all, really, their salespeople. And there was no practicing, and there was no role play, and there was none of that. And by contrast, like I say, when I got this other sales job, every single day, that was part of it. We did matchups every single day. So that kind of thing, right? Role play like that will train you and will coach you and will get you better so that when you are in a real situation with a real customer, then you know things to say because you've practiced them. It doesn't feel awkward. You don't feel strange saying it because you've said it 500 times. You just haven't said it to the customer. You've said it to a coworker, right? But the more you do it, and the more that you're able to lean into the things that the skill sets that you have and that you develop as you go, right, then the quicker you get better. Okay, so treat practice like a game. Okay, if you are a ball player, that's what they recommend in the book. Treat practice like a game. Play in, and this one of my all-time favorite quotes of my entire life. I'm not much of a quote person. But my middle school basketball coach, believe it or not, I still remember what an impact this quote had on me. My middle school basketball coach used to tell us, you play like you practice. You play like you practice. If you are going out in a game and trying to do all these crazy whiz-bang things that you've never done or tried before in practice, get out. You're going to get pulled from the game and set on the bench, and you're probably not going to get back in. Because what are you doing? Play the way that you practice. That's the whole point of practice, right? And, I'll just never forget that as an expression. You play like you practice, whether you want to or not, right? You don't go out and perform all these crazy feats in a game that nobody had any idea you could do because they've never seen you do it before, because in practice you don't show any of that. That's not how things work, right? In a game, you're facing adversity. And so it's even harder to pull off new stuff that you've never done before. It's got to come from somewhere, some basis, some way that you know that you can do what you're trying to do, right? And so practice is the area where you work on those things, and you play like you practice, whether you want to or not. It's not a voluntary thing. It's involuntary. You practice a certain way, that's how you're going to play. All right, and we're talking about process and results a lot during this video series here for this book. That's the process, is the practice. The result is how you perform in the game. If you practice like crap, you're going to play like crap, right? Treat your practices seriously. And so when you do these kinds of things, like a role play, for instance, the worst thing in the world to me was when I would go to role play with a new server at our restaurant, and I would sit down and have them wait on me, and they're like giggly and they all awkward and shy. It's like, man, this person's not going anywhere. Like, you're giggly and goofy and shy and all nervous and stuff in front of me when the restaurant's closed. Like, I'm here to help you. I want you to succeed. You need to. That's the point. So you shouldn't be nervous around me. How are you going to be with the guests, right? That was always a major concern with me. So take it seriously and lock in, right? And that comes to another point that they make throughout the entire book. They make the point over and over and over throughout the book, and I have not belabored it in every single video so far, but I will again here, which is you need to lock in on your mission, okay? You need to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And you need to use that as motivation, and you need to use that as a way to focus, and you need to use that as a way to remind yourself that you play like you practice, so you better practice right, right? You better practice the things that you are going to do in a game. And locking in on your mission helps you to do that because it helps you stay focused and it helps you realize that if I'm going to reach those goals, if that mission is actually important to me, then I need to get serious about it. And you don't just get serious by flipping a switch when you walk out onto the court to play a game or when you walk out from the dugout and go up to bat. Okay, and just like in the office, you don't walk in the front door of the office and then 2 hours later decide you're going to start your day and all of a sudden flip the switch and here you go. No, flip the switch before you walk in and then those 2 hours wouldn't be wasted at the beginning, right? So lock in on your mission and make sure that you are always putting it first, right? Especially when it comes to achievement, when it comes to gaining pursuing these goals, gaining these things that we want, right, in our lives. They're difficult. At least I hope you've set difficult goals for yourself. Otherwise, what's the point? If they weren't difficult, then anybody could have them and anybody could do them. And the point is that you want them. And so hopefully you push yourself with your goals some. And in order to make it, you've got to lock in on your mission and you've got to understand why that's so important to you, right? So working on the mental game in practice, this comes down to, again, locking in on your mission and treating it serious, taking it seriously, treating it like it's a game, right? You can't just all of a sudden crank up the dial when it's time to play, okay? So always compete, okay? Whatever it is that you're, and clearly I'm not saying that 24/7 you need to be totally obsessed with all your goals and everything. I'm not saying that at all, okay? There's times for breaks, you schedule them in, okay? That's a whole other topic, scheduling your day. I'm not even going to get into that in these videos. That'll be a different book. But, when you schedule your day, schedule in some break times. It's okay. You need some downtime, right? When you are off work at night, you don't need to get off of work and then come home and now you're in still achiever mode. Take a little downtime. It's fine, okay? You need to take some downtime. I'm not advocating that you should be 24/7 working like crazy, okay? But I do advocate that when you are going to work on things, when you are going to try to develop your mental game, so to speak, and when you are going to try to go down this road of personal growth and self-development, you need to take it seriously. And you need to lock in on your mission and you need to focus, right? You need to make sure that you've got everything going for you when you're going to try to do something new like that, right? When you're going to try to grow, okay? So that leads me to my final point, I guess, from this chapter, which is about checking in on yourself, okay? And so knowing where you're at, right? And knowing what you're capable of, and again, knowing how to get from one level to the other, if you're a red light or a green light, or a red light or a yellow light rather, how to get to green, okay? How to get to that zone, that peak performance zone. As we talked about with the pitching a couple of chapters ago, 80% of the time you're going to kind of have your average stuff, right? If you're a pitcher. And if we make the analogy to life, 80% of the days you're going to be, pretty much kind of your average self, right? So how do you manage that? How do you hold yourself accountable on those days to make sure that you are maximizing so that your 80%, right? Or rather 80% of the time, you are as close to peak performance as possible, right? And checking in with yourself is key to that because otherwise you have no idea. And so when you feel yourself slipping, when you feel yourself kind of going on tilt or whatever, when you feel yourself heading toward that yellow light, which is the whole point, is kind of the yellow is the transition from green to red. And I don't really know that I pointed that out all that well when I went over that chapter. I think it was chapter 4. The yellow light stuff is the stuff that is, that's what comes up when you kind of start slipping. And so before you get to the red, you want to notice that and you want to pull yourself back to green. And once you're in the red, it can be tough to get back to green once you're fully on tilt, right? So you got to check in with yourself and check in with yourself frequently. and you want to do that throughout your day no matter what, but especially you want to check in on yourself at the start of a project, or at the start of a task, or at the start of your work day, or at the start of your day in the morning when you wake up, whatever the case may be. All of those are good times to check in on yourself and figure out how you're feeling, and figure out what's going on inside, and figure out where am I compared to where I need to be, right? So checking in with yourself and evaluating where you're at, and also evaluating your effort, right? Checking yourself, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Checking yourself on, am I putting forth the effort that is necessary? Am I putting in more effort than is necessary? That's what I like to do. But, because you never know, you might underestimate the effort involved, right? The amount of effort that you need in order to achieve what you want to achieve. And so if you underestimate the effort, but you're putting in more effort than you estimated, then you're going to make up the gap, right? Checking in and making sure that yes, I'm putting forth the maximum effort, right? Evaluate your effort, okay? Again, we talked about this in several chapters, but the whole process results thing, right? The results that we all want, they come from a process, right? Your process is a variety of things that come together that then produce the results. But even if you have the right process and the right plan in place, if your effort's not there, you're not going to get the result that you want. So checking in and making sure that you are on point with your effort is really important. And that is how I evaluate my day at the end of the day. When I journal, I evaluate my effort. Okay, one of my key questions I ask every day in my journal entries that I write about is, was I better today than I was yesterday? And what I'm talking about is my effort. Okay, I'm not talking about the results. I'm talking about my effort. Did I try harder today than I did yesterday? Did I put in maximum effort for where I am today? Right? Because maximum effort from me today is different than maximum effort from me 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or when I was a kid, right? So did I put forth maximum effort, right? And if not, that's okay. You don't scold yourself or anything. At least I don't in my journal entry. I just recognize it. And then I write about what can I do tomorrow to increase my effort, right? And usually I ask one other question in my journal entries, and that'll vary. But that one that always stays is, was I better today than I was yesterday, right? So I'm evaluating effort in that case. And that's what you want to do, is you want to evaluate your effort and not the results. The results you have something to do with, definitely. There's certainly a correlation between people and results, obviously. Some people get good results consistently and some people get not so good results consistently, okay? I'm not saying that there's not. But most important to those results is the process, right? The process is what produces those results. And it's too late once you've got the result to focus on that. You have to focus on the process that produces the result. That's where effort comes in. That's where checking in on yourself comes in. That's where locking in on your mission comes in. Because when you're locked in on your mission, then you know the processes that take you there. Or at least you should have learned them by now, right? So treat your downtime with the same intensity as your uptime, except when you are relaxing, when you have true downtime, when you're taking time off. When I say downtime in this case, I'm talking more about like we talked about with the fielding in the previous chapter. The downtime that happens in baseball where there's not anything going on. At least it doesn't appear to be anything going on. If you're a player, you know the game completely differently. But as a fan, it looks like there's nothing going on, so you might call that downtime, but that ain't downtime at all. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, that equivalent. And then specifically with regard to this chapter, it's about practice, right? And working on your mental game in practice. So So that's it. I mean, that's chapter 9. I don't know where else I can go with this, so I'm going to let you go here and get on to chapter 10. But before I do, I want to invite you over to the website to check that out. It's www.yoursoulsource.com/resources. You can get on over there and drop your email address. And when I get your email address, then I will be able to send you the email newsletter, and I will also be able to send you my notes for this book, as well as notes for other books that you request. That's a whole different thing you'll find out about. You just have to go over there to the website. Like this video if you got something out of it. Subscribe to the channel. We love subscribers, of course, us YouTubers, right? And drop a comment below and let me know, like, how is this going so far? What do you think of this whole thing? This Heads Up Baseball book as an idea for improving our lives, is this useful? Is this something that you think is beneficial to you? If you derive some benefit out of this? If not, either way, I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. If you have ideas that you would like to express that people might be able to use, please do that. Because again, the Soul Source community is all about helping each other to win and to find success together, right? We chase success here and we get it. And that's how, is we collaborate and we come together to share the ideas that are working. So please feel free to do that. Send this on to somebody else who might enjoy it as well. That's the end of chapter 9. We got one chapter left in the book. It's the next video, chapter 10, and I will see you there.
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.